Lucas's boots hit the gravel as he stepped onto the edge of his property, eyes locked on the approaching tow truck. The red boom arm glinted in the sun as it rumbled slowly up the private lane, its diesel engine coughing like a smoker. The Mustang sat quietly in its usual spot, this time parked legally in his driveway, just a few feet from the garage. Not touching the road, not angled wrong, nothing out of order. Still, the tow truck kept coming. Lucas walked toward it, waving his arms. The driver, a stocky man in a sun-faded ball cap, rolled down his window. "You the owner of that red classic?" "Yeah, and this is my private road? You're trespassing." The driver's eyes darted to the clipboard in his hands. "Got a work order here?" Said it's community-maintained property. "Orders from Oak Haven, HOA? You've been misinformed. That's my car. That road is mine. You tow that? You'll be facing a lawsuit before you hit second gear." The driver hesitated. Lucas saw his hand tremble slightly as he looked toward the sidewalk where Karen stood with her arms folded, watching everything like a hawk perched for the kill. Her mouth didn't move, but her expression said everything. She was daring him, testing him. "I'm gonna need clarification from the HOA," the driver muttered, tapping the steering wheel nervously. "Can't get sued today." Lucas nodded. Slowly, smart choice. The tow truck reversed, wheels crunching over gravel, until it disappeared down the hill again. Lucas turned back toward his garage and caught Karen's gaze as she tilted her head, like a disapproving schoolteacher. "Refusing to comply doesn't mean you're right," she called out. "And writing fake violations doesn't make you queen of the neighborhood." Lucas shot back. Karen didn't flinch. "You'll find out soon enough what happens when you break the rules here." With that, she disappeared behind her manicured hedge. Lucas stood there a moment longer, letting the adrenaline settle. His hand rested on the Mustang's hood as if to shield it. The car wasn't just a machine. It was the last thing he and his brother had worked on together before Alex was deployed. The paint, the rebuilt engine, the new clutch, it was family. It was legacy. No HOA was going to touch it. That night, Lucas couldn't sleep. His security cameras were up, 4 motion-activated HD lenses, trained on every angle of the house and driveway just before 2 a.m. His phone buzzed. Motion detected. East Drive perimeter. He opened the app and saw her, Karen, standing at the edge of the tree line with a flashlight, pacing. She didn't step onto the property. Not quite. But she pointed her light toward the edge of the driveway, then crouched, measuring tape in hand. Lucas clenched his jaw. She was looking for technicalities, inches, loopholes. She wasn't just trying to enforce HOA policy. She was looking for a way in. By dawn, another violation notice had been tucked into his mailbox. This one read, "Second warning. Unauthorized use of roadway. Subject to immediate fine." And below that, in handwriting far too elegant to be from the HOA printer, "Some people just don't belong here." Lucas crumpled the paper in his fist. This wasn't about cars anymore. This was about control. And Karen had just picked a fight with the wrong man. Lucas didn't go to work the next morning. He sat on his porch with a mug of black coffee, boots up on the railing, watching the road like a sentry guarding a castle. The Mustang was parked safely in the garage, again locked, alarm armed, cameras rolling, but he knew Karen wasn't finished. People like her didn't back down. They escalated. By 9 a.m., his email pinged with a notice from the HOA board. The subject line read, "Notice of known compliance and pending fine." He opened it. The PDF attached was dripping with official language. "Violation of Regulation 1-B. Failure to adhere to overnight parking restrictions, unauthorized. Use of common access roadways. The fine, $500. Due in 5 business days." Lucas exhaled slowly, his thumb hovering over the forward button. He sent it to his lawyer, Natalie Park, who'd helped him with the property purchase. Then he grabbed his keys and headed to City Hall. 2 hours later, he walked out with a certified copy of the parcel survey and zoning map. The road, the one Karen insisted was shared use, was unmistakably within his private lot line. There was no easement, no right of way, no gray area. He stopped at the HOA office on his way home. The receptionist, a young man who looked like he hated every moment of his job, gave him a plastic smile. "I need to speak with the HOA president," Lucas said. The receptionist checked his screen. "Mr. Worthington is in a meeting with Karen Whitmore," Lucas interrupted. The man blinked, then nodded. "Yes, actually." Lucas pulled out the survey map and tapped it with a blunt finger. "Tell him I'm giving him one chance to pull these bogus violations and remove my property from their so-called tow list. Because if another truck comes up my driveway, I'll file a restraining order and a civil suit so fast he won't know what hit him." The receptionist stared, slack-jawed. Lucas handed over the map, turned, and walked out. By the time he got home, the Mustang was back in the driveway, freshly waxed and sparkling under the sun. Just to make a point, that night, a knock came at the door. Lucas opened it to find a woman in her early 30s, holding a glass baking dish covered in foil. She had a half-apologetic smile and eyes that looked like they hadn't slept well in months. "Hi, I'm Maya," she said. "I live 3 houses down. Welcome to the neighborhood. I brought brownies." Lucas raised a brow, clearly suspicious. "Are they poisoned?" She laughed, only with bitter resentment toward the HOA. That earned a grin. They sat on his porch steps, sharing the brownies and stories. Maya had been in Oak Haven for 6 years. Her first violation had been 4. A wind chime. The second, a hummingbird feeder in her backyard. They're trying to force people out, she said, especially newer residents. If you push back, they slap you with fines, then liens. And if you try to fight it, they wear you down until you give up, or move out. Lucas shook his head. She can't do that. None of this is legal. She doesn't care, Maya said. She's not just enforcing rules, she's clearing the way. For what? Maya looked around cautiously, then pulled out her phone and showed him a picture. It was a blurry image of Karen and HOA President Worthington, standing with a man in a suit by a large table map. Lucas leaned in. There, on the map, was a red circle drawn around his property. They're selling off parts of Oak Haven. Maya, whispered Karen's helping them. Your road, your land. She paused. Lucas stood alone in his garage, staring at the map Maya had shown him. His road circled in red, his land targeted. The Mustang sat behind him like a silent sentinel, catching glints of light from the overhead bulbs. They weren't just harassing him for fun. This wasn't some petty HOA power play anymore. It was a land grab. He opened his laptop and began cataloging everything. The bogus citations, the security footage of Karen creeping near his property at 2 a.m., the $500 fine, the map Maya had captured. He created a digital folder labeled Oak Haven, HOA. Evidence. The deeper he dug, the stranger things got. He found a zoning request filed 6 months earlier, quiet, unnoticed, buried in the county archives. A request to reclassify portions of Oak Haven's private parcels into shared development zones. The document was unsigned, but the requester's name had been left in metadata. Whitmore Consulting. Karen had a consulting company. Lucas leaned back in his chair, heart thudding. Either this was some coincidence or Karen was building a shell business to funnel property deals through. She wasn't just enforcing rules, she was rewriting them, parcel by parcel, homeowner by homeowner. At 1:47 a.m., his phone buzzed. Motion detected. West Treeline Camera 2. He tapped the feed. The image was grainy, but clear enough. 2 figures moved along the edge of his lot, one carrying what looked like a small stake hammer. The other held a clipboard and flashlight. Lucas squinted. One of them was Karen. She was hammering a new stake into the ground. One about 5 feet inside his property line. He sprinted outside, barefoot and furious, grabbing a flashlight on the way. By the time he reached the tree line, they were gone. But the fresh stake stood like a dagger in the soil, bright pink flag fluttering at the top. Tied to it was a small laminated tag, pending reclassification. Shared use zone. He yanked it out of the ground with a curse, then scanned the woods. With his flashlight, leaves rustled, branches whispered, but no sign of Karen or her accomplice. The next morning, Lucas paid a visit to Maya. She opened her door holding a half-finished cup of coffee, wearing a hoodie that read, "I pay HOA dues, so Karen can stalk me." She moved a stake. Maya asked, horrified. "That's a serious line to cross. She's claiming part of my land now, quietly, illegally." Maya pulled out a file folder from her kitchen drawer and spread out 6 similar laminated stake tags. She's been doing this for a year, one flag at a time. People think it's survey work. Then suddenly the HOA declares your flower bed part of a maintenance easement, and you're not allowed to touch it. Lucas stared at her, feeling the cold truth settle in. "I'm not letting this go," he said. "This isn't a community. It's a scam wrapped in a white picket fence." Maya smiled, bitter and tired. "Good, because most people roll over. But you might actually be the guy who breaks this wide open." Lucas drove straight to the county zoning office that afternoon and filed a formal complaint for unauthorized staking and trespassing. He attached camera footage, timestamps, GPS overlays, and deed boundaries. The clerk looked uneasy. "We've had complaints from Oak Haven before, but this is the first time someone's provided evidence." Lucas left the office feeling something new. Not hope, not quite, but pressure on them, and he intended to keep it building. That night, a new sign appeared at the entrance to his driveway. Black letters on a white plastic board. "No parking, subject to immediate tow. HOA" was staked into his front lawn. The audacity stunned him. They weren't hiding anymore. They were declaring war. Lucas ripped the sign from his lawn, nearly snapping the plastic post in two. It took everything in him not to march down to Karen's house and toss it through her front window. But he couldn't play her game, not emotionally. She thrived on panic and outrage. She wanted him to lash out, to make the first legal mistake. He stood at the curb, staring at the bare patch where the sign had stood. A red Prius slowly rolled by. He recognized it, one of the HOA board members, Scott Langley. The man refused to make eye contact as he passed. Cowards, all of them. Lucas walked the perimeter of his yard that afternoon with a printed copy of his deed in hand, checking every inch. For more of those pink flags had been staked into the far tree line. Their tags flapping like sinister little warnings. He pulled each one out, bagged them, and added them to his growing evidence folder. By the time the sun went down, Lucas was back inside installing the last of 4 new surveillance cameras. These weren't motion triggered this time. They streamed live to a secure cloud server. Karen was sneaky, but she wasn't a ghost. At 11:26 p.m., The first alert came. South fence movement. Lucas tapped his screen. Karen, she wasn't alone. Another figure followed, hurdler, broader shouldered, holding something large. It looked like a folding ladder. His blood went cold. They were heading toward the garage side, where the Mustang sat once again in plain view. Lucas didn't call the police. Not yet. He wanted them caught. The camera caught the taller figure climbing the ladder, peering over the fence with a flashlight. Karen stood below, pointing and gesturing toward the driveway, her voice faint but sharp through the audio mic. It's clear. If we mark from this fence post here, we can call it a shared easement line. You sure about this? The man muttered. Karen's voice hardened. He won't fight us if the board approves it. He's already getting warning letters. Lucas leaned into the mic. Enjoy the view. Both figures froze. Karen's head snapped toward the camera. She squinted at the blinking red LED just as Lucas clicked the floodlight switch. Bright, blinding light exploded over the driveway and garage. Karen shielded her eyes. The man stumbled backward off the ladder, crashing into a bush. Smile for the cloud, Lucas said aloud. Karen didn't respond. She grabbed the ladder and yanked it toward the sidewalk. You're trespassing, Lucas called out. You're on private property. That's 2 separate crimes in one night. Should I keep counting? Karen turned once, her face taut and cold in the glare. You're escalating this. I'm warning you. Lucas didn't move. So warned the judge. They disappeared down the street, retreating in silence. The next morning, Lucas emailed the footage to both the county sheriff's office and his attorney. The file was labeled Unauthorized Survey Activity Suspects. Karen Whitmore, plus unknown. Mail by noon. Karen struck back. Another HOA letter, arrived this time by courier. Not mailbox. Subject. Official HOA directive. Immediate vehicle relocation. Required. Inside was a printed community amendment dated the night before. It claimed that all homeowners were now subject to new shared usage guidelines. Regardless of existing lot lines, pending final review, it was unsigned, no board vote. Just Karen's voice, hiding behind fake bylaws. Lucas stepped out onto his porch, read the letter again, and let it flutter to the ground. She wasn't playing by the rules anymore, so why should he? Natalie Park leaned back in her chair, tapping a pen against her cheek as she read the so-called community amendment Karen had sent Lucas. Her eyes narrowed, tracing each line like a detective cracking a case. After a few moments, she dropped the document onto the table between them. This isn't an amendment, she said flatly. It's a bluff. Lucas arched an eyebrow. You sure? It looks official. It's missing board approval. It wasn't signed. And most importantly, it doesn't follow your HOA's amendment procedures. They're legally required to notify homeowners of a proposed change, give time for comments, and then vote with a recorded majority. She slid another folder across the table. This is a Word document printed and hand-delivered like it came from some dictatorship. Lucas stared at the text again, his jaw tightening. Karen wasn't just fabricating rules, she was weaponizing bureaucracy. She knew most homeowners wouldn't hire a lawyer, wouldn't check the bylaws, wouldn't fight back, but Lucas wasn't most people. Can I sue her personally? He asked. Natalie smiled grimly. Already in motion, but if you want to hit harder, there's something better. She opened another folder. This one was older paper, yellowed at the corners, photocopied from a city archive. This is the original Oak Haven HOA charter. Buried in Section 7, subsection D, is a clause written before the expansion of the community. It states that private parcels with their own ingress or egress routes, she pointed, are exempt from collective use enforcement unless the owner signs an individual waiver. Lucas blinked. You're saying my road is exempt? Natalie nodded. Legally, Karen has no authority over it. No fines, no violations, no parking enforcement. The HOA cannot claim jurisdiction over your private lane unless you agreed to it, and I never did. Exactly, Lucas grinned. How fast can you write a spondocyst? You'll have it before lunch. He left her office feeling like he'd finally taken a bat to the wasp nest. When he got home, he found 2 of his neighbors waiting by his driveway, and a middle-aged man with wire-framed glasses and a nervous expression. This is Tom, Maya said. He used to be on the board. He has something to show you. Tom held out a USB drive. I've been collecting HOA meeting recordings. Karen made me stop uploading them to the portal, said they confused homeowners. But I kept copies. Lucas took the drive, intrigued. Anything about me? Tom nodded slowly. There was a closed-door session last month. Karen brought in a real estate developer, Jensen Construction. She said if she could get you to relocate or sell, they'd pay triple lot price and build a new model townhome as the new entrance face of Oak Haven. Maya exhaled sharply. They're trying to turn your land into a sales billboard. Lucas inserted the USB into his laptop. 10 minutes later, he heard Karen's voice echo through his speakers. Once we get that car out of the way, we can toe the narrative. He'll either move or break a rule we can find. No one wants to live next to a problem homeowner. Then laughter. Chilly, confident. Lucas paused the video, adrenaline pumping. That's it, he said. That's our matchstick. That evening he posted the full video to a private neighborhood forum with one line beneath. Still think this is about parking? Within hours, the post exploded. Dozens of comments, neighbors furious. A few admitted to getting similar mysterious fines. One even showed a lien placed on their home they didn't understand. It wasn't a conspiracy theory anymore. It was a conspiracy, and Karen had just lost her grip on secrecy. Karen didn't show her face for 2 days. Not at the park, not at the HOA office, not even peeking from behind her curtains, where she was usually perched like a hawk. But her silence wasn't surrendered. With strategy. Lucas knew it, and so did the rest of Oakhaven. After the forum video exploded, something shifted in the neighborhood. For the first time, homeowners began talking, not just angry whispers behind hedges, but open discussions on sidewalks, over fences, on group texts that used to be filled with yard sale listings and lost cat alerts. They were done being afraid. Maya had created a digital Dropbox labeled HOA Abuse Archive. Every day, more residents uploaded evidence copies of random fines, photos of tampered stakes, surveillance screenshots, even HOA newsletters with strange edits and new policies. Never voted on. Lucas spent an entire afternoon piecing together a timeline. He noticed something odd. Every violation, every lien, every fine for aesthetic disruption had occurred on homes that lined the southern boundary of the community, the border closest to a wide undeveloped stretch of land. He pulled up the county's public development site and found it a proposal from Jensen Construction, filed months ago, a luxury townhome expansion titled Oakhaven South. On the project map, one line was highlighted in red, a proposed access road right through Lucas's property. That was it. The reason Karen cared so much about where he parked, the reason she hounded anyone near the southern edge of Oakhaven, she wasn't protecting community values. She was clearing the path. He forwarded everything to Natalie and drove straight to the town council office. By now, he was on a first-name basis with the zoning clerk, who gave him 5 minutes in the council records room. Lucas presented every document he had, every time-stamped violation, every forged amendment. The clerk's brow furrowed deeper with each sheet. "This is serious," he said, voice low. "If what you're showing me holds up, the HOA board may be in breach of community trust and zoning law, especially if they've been colluding with developers without disclosure." Lucas nodded. "Then let's make it official." He filed a formal ethics complaint against the Oakhaven HOA board, and he wasn't alone. By sunset, 7 other homeowners had added their names. That night, Lucas parked the Mustang outside, again directly in the spot that had started it all. No cover, no caution, full headlights toward the street. Let them try to tow it now. He didn't wait long. At 10:03 p.m., a black SUV pulled into the street across from his driveway. Karen stepped out, clipboard in hand, lips pursed so tightly it looked like they'd disappear. She marched right up to the edge of his driveway and snapped a photo of the car. Lucas, standing on the porch, raised his phone and started filming. Karen froze. "You know," he called, "a good rule of thumb is to not break laws while under 3 separate investigations." She didn't answer. Instead, she dropped her clipboard, turned, and stalked back to her car. As she opened the door, Lucas called again. "Board meeting's going to be interesting tomorrow. You might want to brush up on the HOA by the part about emergency elections." Karen paused for half a second, then she drove off. Lucas walked down to retrieve her clipboard. On it, a list of vehicles, addresses, target dates. His was marked for removal on Monday, but next to it, in bold handwriting, "Must be dealt with. He's making noise." Lucas looked back at his house, where the Mustang glowed under the porch lights like a challenge. "No," he thought. "I'm making history." The HOA boardroom smelled like laminate wood and stale fear. Monday evening, chairs were packed shoulder to shoulder. For the first time in years, nearly the entire neighborhood had shown up in person. Some held printouts of fines, others clutched highlighted bylaws. Lucas stood near the back with Maya, arms crossed, waiting. Karen hadn't arrived yet. President Worthington, red-faced and sweating, shuffled papers at the front podium. "We ask for decorum, please. This meeting will follow proper parliamentary." A voice from the crowd cut him off. "Where's Karen?" Whispers rippled through the room like dry leaves in wind. Someone else shouted, "She knew this was coming. She's hiding." As if summoned by contempt, Karen finally appeared at the side door, wearing a slate-gray blazer like armor and sunglasses, despite the indoor lighting. She walked straight to her seat without acknowledging a single homeowner. Worthington cleared his throat nervously. "Let's proceed with Agenda Item 1, recent concerns over enforcement practices and board accountability." Maya raised her hand. "Motion to open the floor for community review of misconduct." Worthington flinched. "That's out of order. The board has not formally recognized." Lucas stepped forward, projecting his voice. "Then let me help." He turned his phone toward the screen mounted above the board desk and played the video from Tom's USB. Karen's voice echoed loud and clear. "Once we get that car out of the way, we can tow the narrative." Then laughter. Then strategy. Then the words, "He'll either move or break a rule we can find." Gasps filled the room. Karen finally looked up, but not at Lucas. Her eyes darted to Worthington, who had gone pale. A woman from the third row stood and held up a photo. This was my yard. I got fined for planting lavender instead of HOA-approved shrubs. Another man spoke. My guest's car got towed on a holiday weekend. I was told it was a fire lane on my property. One by one, voices rose. Testimonials, accusations. Evidence. Someone passed around the clipboard Lucas had found. The list of problem homeowners, with removal deadlines and coded notes in Karen's handwriting. Worthington stammered, "These allegations are unverified. This isn't the proper. Then we'll take it to court," Lucas said. The room cheered. Karen stood, finally removing her sunglasses. Her voice was as sharp as ever. "You people don't understand. Without structure, this community crumbles. You need rules, control, a standard." "You mean control?" Maya snapped. "You mean you in charge?" Karen's face cracked for the first time. Lucas took the final step forward. "I'm calling for a vote of no confidence. Emergency clause? HOA, Charter Section 9B, right here." He held up the bylaws Natalie had prepared. The room erupted in agreement. Worthington hesitated, then slowly nodded. "All in favor." Hands shot up, every single one, even Tom's. Even the silent old couple in the corner who'd never spoken in any meeting. All opposed. Only Karen's hand rose. Lucas smiled grimly. Motion carried. Karen stood stiffly, her mouth twitching between rage and disbelief. "This isn't over," she said. "You're playing checkers in a chess game." "No," Lucas replied. "We're flipping the board." As she stormed out, security cameras caught her peeling out of the parking lot, tires screeching down the community road she once ruled like a queen. That night, the HOA website quietly changed. New leadership was posted, fines were frozen, investigations into past actions began. Lucas walked home, Mustang keys in hand, heart pounding, not with fear, but with purpose. He parked the car in its usual spot, his road. His rules and stared at the stars overhead. Then he saw them tire tracks on his lawn. Fresh. And in his garage window. A brick. Shattered. Lucas stood silently amidst the shards of glass scattered across his garage floor. The harsh morning light cutting through the chaos like a spotlight on the final act of a long, bitter play. The brick thrown with precision and fury was a message from Karen, no doubt. A last desperate act from a woman losing control. But Lucas wasn't afraid. The police had arrived minutes after the call. They took his statement, photographed the damage, and promised to investigate the vandalism. Even as they left, Lucas felt a sense of calm wash over him. The nightmare was ending. Karen's removal from the HOA board wasn't just symbolic, it was legal. The emergency vote Lucas had spearheaded led to a full internal investigation. The results were damning. Multiple fines were rescinded, and several homeowners sued the HOA for damages caused by illegal fines and harassment. Karen was named in several civil suits and faced potential criminal charges for property, tampering, and fraud. The community rallied together, establishing the HOA Transparency Committee, a group of homeowners dedicated to keeping the board accountable and ensuring no one could wield power like Karen ever again. Lucas was elected as a founding member, his first act drafting new bylaws that explicitly defined the limits of HOA authorities, especially concerning private property and roadways. His own driveway was now protected by a clear sign, "Private property, no HOA jurisdiction." Neighbors waved as he parked his Mustang there every day without worry. Children played on the sidewalks, neighbors shared weekend barbecues, and the oppressive tension that had once gripped Oak Haven slowly lifted like a long-held breath. Yet, in a twist neither Lucas nor the neighborhood saw coming, a letter arrived 6 weeks later. It was marked with an official county seal and carried a chilling headline, "Notice of New Development Permit Application." Lucas's eyes scanned the document, heart sinking. The applicant, Karen Whitmore, but this time, she wasn't wearing the cloak of HOA power. Instead, she was working directly for Jensen Construction, the very developer she had secretly colluded with before. Her target, the vacant lot across the street. Oak Haven's southern border was about to face a new battle. Lucas smiled grimly, clutching the letter. Game on, Karen. And this time, he was ready not just to defend his home, but the entire neighborhood. The war was far from over, but the people of Oak Haven had learned something invaluable. Together, they were stronger than fear, corruption, and control. And sometimes, the smallest battles like parking a car on your own private road could ignite the fiercest revolutions.